It's the last week of the regular season, which brings us to our final regular season episode of This Week in CAA Football. I'm Bobby Broyles, along with the Tim McDonald. Tim, it's exciting, but also sad to see the regular season come to a close, isn't it?
That's well said, Bobby, but, Christmas come early this year. And with so much on the line heading into the playoffs, the final week of the regular season, it's right around the corner. I'm okay with that.
Well, before we get into those playoff scenarios and our rivalry week matchups, let's begin with the Maine Black Bears, Tim, as Jack Cosgrove's crew captured its first CAA football title with a 41-0 win over Rhode Island on Saturday.
And every year, Bobby, CAA football seems to have that one team who it's just meant to be. And this year, right now, it's been Maine. You look at that game versus Rhode Island, they start really fast, score a couple of touchdowns. Before you know it, they're up to the half, and they just hold on 41-0, really complete start to finish. And Coach Cosgrove, deservedly, he was announced that he's one of the finalists for the Eddie Robinson Award, along with Jimmy Laycock of William Mary. Very deservedly so. Maine's picked 8th in the preseason, Bobby. That just shows you what it means to have preseason polls and things like that, because play gets determined on the field. It's a pleasant surprise for CAA football because Maine's been so impressive. There's only been one team in the history of CAA football, Bobby, to go undefeated. That was JMU. They went 8-0. Maine has a chance to do it this week. It's going to be a tall task, but they got a chance to go undefeated this week in CAA play, which does not happen very often.
Not at all, and you got to be impressed with it's all been led by their quarterback performance, Marcus Wojciechowski, and that defense as well.
Robertson and some other quarterbacks from around the league will get the headlines, but you're right. Wojciechowski has been the guy who's been probably the most consistent all year.
The Black Bears continue their journey on Saturday as they look to capture some more hardware, heading to Durham to take on rival New Hampshire in the Battle of the Bryce Cowell Musket. Hard to believe that the Wildcats haven't allowed Maine to escape with the Musket at home since 2001, Tim.
It's really a marquee matchup. And how perfect is it to end CAA football this weekend with a game on Comcast? It's going to be shown up and down the East Coast, Bobby, of two bitter rivals. Now, when I say bitter, they don't like each other, but I think they respect each other, too. These are two programs built in the North, two head coaches that are very, very similar. It's hard for them to recruit, but they get it done. And really two teams who, over the last couple of years, Bobby, have been at the top of their game. Look at Maine heading into this one. They know they're in the playoffs. That's the biggest question. How do you sit there as a player? We're already in the playoffs right now. Yeah. Yes, we're playing our rival, but we're in the playoffs. I don't think Maine's going to have that attitude. I think they're plenty to play for heading into this game. They can end the season on a note and possibly get a big playoff seed, which would mean a home game. They've never hosted a home playoff game, Bobby. New Hampshire, on the other hand, they're hanging alive in this game. 6-4 right now. They need a win to even be in the playoff discussion. But a win over Maine, which is ranked in the top 5 right now, would certainly go a long way. Bobby, I don't know if you know anything about the history of the musket itself. It was made between 1722 and 1745 by Ebenezer Nutting of Falmouth, Maine. Okay, It's a 65 caliber rifle and it's 43-inch barrel. Okay, that's an old rifle, but it means a lot to these teams. And like you said, UNH has gotten the better of Maine over the last couple of years. Not so fast this year, because Maine's going to come to Cowell with a lot to play for and a lot of energy heading into this game. Should be another great one on Saturday.
Of course, UNH coming off that win over UAlbany. The freshman, Dalton Carlson, having a big day for the Wildcats. I guess whoever wins this trophy needs to be careful raising it if it's that low.
Hey, I know, right?
This game can be seen live on 5 Comcast Sportsnet affiliates as well as on CAA.TV for you out-of-market viewers. After watching the Wildcats and the Black Bears in the Battle of the Musket, stay in your seat for another marquee matchup as Towson looks to add to its postseason resume when it welcomes a James Madison squad yet to win on the road this season. This one will kick at 3:30 on the NBC Sports Network, Tim.
And Towson last week, a statement win. We said coming into that game versus William Mary, how are they going to respond? Are they going to hang their heads and say we should have won that Delaware game? Or are they going to move forward? I think we proved it. You either learn two things. A, again, how good William Mary's defense was. But I also think you learned how good Towson's defense is. You look at that Towson D. 15. They allowed 9 points, win 15-9. 3 field goals by Carpenter, the kicker for William Mary. That's it, Bobby. At halftime, it was a close game. William Mary had really held Towson in check. Towson opened up the notch a little bit. An important win, not only because they bounced back from Delaware. That's their 9th win of the season, Bobby. 10 straight on the road. I think they're in the playoffs, in my opinion, right now. I think they've done enough on their schedule. They have an FBS win. It's a huge win, heading forward because another potential for another CAA football team to have a home game in the playoff. Terrence West, it's funny, Bobby, every week we talk about him. This week he's going up against a monster, Stephon Robertson. Last week, he had 130 yards and we're acting like he had 50 yards.
Yeah,
that's just
exactly.
Terrence West. That's our expectations for him. It's going to be tough this week. JMU, they're heading into this one a little bit beaten down. Last week's a very tough loss. You hate to say that JMU didn't show up, but they really didn't. 31 points allowed versus Stony Brook at the half, Bobby. That's the second most allowed since 1992 for a JMU football team.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen. And JMU for a team, likely to miss the playoffs again. Nothing to lose. You have a chance to go to Towson. But again, Mickey Matthews stressed about it all week. That's secondary for JMU. Has some young guys who haven't played and don't have the experience, and it's shown, especially the last 2 weeks. Good for Stony Brook, but again, JMU, you have to try to battle and try to get something going offensively against Towson.
You definitely have to look for the quarterback, Peter Athens, to take advantage of that young Duke secondary after you saw what Loudon
You'd figure,
did
exactly. The
last
last 2 games, UNH and Stony Brook have really... Stony Brook had 395 yards passing against JMU. Who'd have said that in the middle of the season against JMU?
Exactly. Also kicking off at 3:30 will be the Battle of the Blue between Delaware and Villanova at PPL Park, home of Major League Soccer's Philadelphia Union. A lot on the line in this rivalry matchup, especially for the Blue Hens, who need a win to make their case for a playoff spot. Wildcats also enter this one fresh off their open week, Tim.
And it wouldn't be the final weekend of CAA football without the Battle of the Blue. Delaware comes into this game certainly still alive in the playoff hope. They've lost 2 straight after that Towson win, which was, a miracle in itself. But now they're reeling right now. They're playing Villanova, their rival, and they come home. Delaware last week versus Richmond, you'd think they're going to get it done. Trent Hurley comes back from injury, throws 4 touchdown passes. Andrew Pierce, the running back, the senior, his last home game, he scores with 45 seconds left. What happens? But they lose that game in heartbreaking fashion. Now they're heading into this one trying to stop John Robertson and the Wildcats, who are still a little bit banged up, Bobby. They're not healthy 100%, but that open week, definitely helped. You talked about, Coach Talley in the press conference this week talked about just how important it was for this team because this team really was hit hard by the injury bug. And they're looking to play spoiler, which is something that we didn't think would happen entering the year. Villanova was the preseason favorite. It's certainly, something that we didn't expect. And Delaware's heading into this one still with a lot to play. They played a 12-game schedule, Bobby, so if they get this win, it can certainly help. How about Robertson? He's now the all-time rushing quarterback at Villanova. Chris Whitney, the great, who helped them win a national championship a couple years ago, he passed his record. I think it's going to be the key. Robertson, averaging over 120 yards rushing per game. He scored 4 touchdowns last time versus Rhode Island, so that's going to be the key, stopping him.
And definitely look for John Robertson if they're using that running game to go into the air because that Delaware secondary, kind of like JMU's, getting torched a little bit recently. Another huge rivalry is renewed at 4 o'clock when Red Hot Richmond welcomes a battle-tested William & Mary squad to Robins Stadium in one of the South's oldest rivalries, the Capital Cup. Spiders again looking to play spoiler this week, Tim.
For a lot of people around here, this is a big game. I want to know if anyone can stop the Spiders because over the last couple of weeks, Bobby, no one's done it. They've won 3 straight, and Michael Strauss has absolutely been on fire. The last 2 games, he's had 10 touchdowns, I should say, 5 touchdowns per game. Spiders right now are scary. It's getting old, and I know it's getting old-fashioned, but you don't want to face this team right now if you're looking to end the season on a strong note like William & Mary is. If any team, though, you'd think can stop the Spiders, it'd be William & Mary. Still, this game for either team. Richmond, do you want to end the season on a good note, end it with 4 wins? William & Mary, if you win this one, you like to think that their playoff chances are set. It's going to be tough. William & Mary's lost to Towson in the end. 3 field goals offensively, that's all they generated. Really didn't move the ball, especially on key downs. You saw a lot of 3rd and shorts and a lot of 4th downs that were stopped. Credit to Towson, but William & Mary, you need to get it done offensively. That's ever more present this week. Brent Caprio and Trey McBride. A heartbreaking drop by Trey McBride. I won't blame it all on him. That was, it was a game that a lot of things happened, but that pass at the end, great opportunity. Unfortunately, we see him make that play 20 times out of 21 times. Just that time, he didn't. William & Mary coming into this game, you need a win to get the playoff line. I think that helps a little bit. Put your back against the wall. The last couple of weeks, William & Mary hasn't had to play like that. And now Richmond, I think the big key is they had 3 receivers last week over 100 yards. That's never happened in Richmond program history. Stephen Barnett, Rashad Ponder, and Brian Brown last week all had over 100 yards. And Strauss is going to have to look to them because you know who's out this week. Unfortunately, one of the best receivers in CAA football, Ben Edwards, tore his ACL. So they're going to have to look for them. We know Richmond's strengths aren't going to be running the ball. Air attack, Bobby. That's what they're going to do. It's the last home game for a couple of those seniors.
Yeah, heartbreaking injury there for Ben Edwards, the senior for Richmond. But when you look at this matchup, you see William & Mary played a Towson team that ran the football a lot, and it's a completely different style this week. Is that going to confuse the Tribe defense a little bit to have to prepare for a running attack and now a passing attack?
Like I said, I like their chances just because they haven't had to play a game where they say we need to win this or the season's over. Now they have to. The defenders last week want to prove what happened against Towson, Towson didn't have the best game offensively, but they got it done when they needed to.
In CAA football's newest rivalry, league newcomers UAlbany and Stony Brook will square off in the Empire Clash at 1 o'clock. Should be an emotional day on Long Island, Tim, as Bob Ford will coach his final game after more than 40 years with the Great Danes against his former player and assistant, Chuck Priori.
What a way for the script to end for Coach Ford and for Coach Priori for this season. You look at these two teams, Bobby, two New York teams. They're both in CAA football for the first season. Mm-hmm. It's fitting that they end together against each other because they kind of recollect their thoughts and regroup on the season that was for CAA football and really have a chance to end it the right way against two teams who are the newcomers, yes, but they've also proven at times this year that they're welcome in this league and they could be a force moving forward. Coach Ford, let's let that sink in, Bobby. 40 years, had his last home game last week. He's been the face of this UAlbany program, and after Saturday, Bobby, there's not going to be another Division I coach. He's the most winning coach right now actively in Division I football. After Saturday, that's not going to be the case. Let that sink in for a minute. What he's done for that program, what he's done for college football in general. You look at this game. It's a great matchup. UAlbany comes in, again, heartbreaking how they've lost the last couple times. They've been close. It's always been one or two plays. Last week versus New Hampshire, it was Justin Mello had a quick touchdown in the fourth quarter, and then Dalton Crossan had a kickoff return. That's what did it in for Albany. Stony Brook, on the other hand, coming into this one, look at their chances. Last week they make a statement win at JMU. Had a good fan base there at JMU. Get it done. Lyle Negron, the quarterback, 395 yards. If you told me that was going to happen and that's how they were going to beat JMU, I would have laughed at you. Yeah. But that's how they got it done. And I look at that adjustment for Stony Brook, and they found offensive rhythm, and they found some things that they needed to change. That's a sign to me of a team in CAA football understanding the need to make adjustments week to week. And I think we saw that last week. Again, UAlbany, another tough one. How do you want to end it, though? What a way to end it if you can get a win for Bob Ford and get that CAA football win and send him out. What can't you just see Bob Ford on the shoulders? It's going to be tough, but you want to think that they have a great chance to do it.
It would be a great image indeed. Remember, you can follow all of this weekend's games on our game day page on cafootball.com, which features links to live stats and audio and video streaming for all 5 games. And don't forget to check in with us on Sunday when we bring you our weekly rundown.
With all the action going down on Saturday, I know it's sometimes hard to keep up with all your favorite teams, scores, and highlights. But CAA Football has you covered. You can catch us on Twitter at CAA Football using the official hashtag CAFB. And find us on Facebook, facebook.com/CAA Football. And don't be shy. Feel free to hit us up with comments or questions. We're also on Vine and Instagram by just searching CAA Football.
CAA Football was in Williamsburg for the matchup between the Tribe and the Tigers. If you haven't watched our Going Deep feature on William & Mary's Quincy September and Brian Stinney, check it out now on the blog at cafootball.wordpress.com or on caa.tv, along with interviews, highlights, a campus tour, and even some Tribe tailgate action.
And the CAA football crew will wrap up its regular season on-campus coverage right down the street at the University of Richmond, side of this Saturday's Capital Cup between the Spiders and the Tribe.
Tim, the two of us will be in Charleston for this weekend's volleyball championship, but I think you know where we can stay up to date on all of this weekend's action.
Of course I do, Bobby B. Stay tuned to CAFootball.com and our official Everyday is Saturday blog for highlights and analysis. And be sure to check with us there next week as we bring the Going Deep feature on Richmond.
Well, Tim, as we wrap up the regular season finale of this week in CAA football, let's take a quick look at the FCS postseason landscape. Which teams might we be seeing on the board selection Sunday?
Well, it's like Christmas morning for me, Bobby, but I think we know for a fact, obviously, that Maine's in. They won the league's automatic qualifier. I think it's safe to say that Towson in. And now the question is Delaware, New Hampshire, and William & Mary. That's my opinion, those 3 teams. They need to win this weekend, hands down. If they don't win, 5 losses, we know that's probably not going to get them in. Now, the thing to remember, 24 teams make the playoffs this year. There's 11 auto bids, 13 at large. Bobby, I think in my mind right now there's 15 to 18 teams, if they win this weekend, that are fighting for that final spot. Let's remember 7 wins isn't a key, isn't an absolute need to make the playoffs, but it's something that the committee uses along the process to say, okay, that's where we're going to look at teams. 7 Division I wins. The good thing about CAA football, every team this year played a complete Division I schedule, okay? So everyone had a good schedule. Everyone went out of conference and, for the most part, challenged themselves. I think the question now is take care of business this week, and that will set this league up for more teams potentially in the field.
You can catch the FCS Selection Show live on ESPNU Sunday morning at 11:30, and stay tuned to our social media and cafootball.com for updates on postseason play, as well as national awards and the announcement of our all-conference teams next Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in to this week's show, everyone.
Bobby and I will see you here next week for our first playoff edition of This Week in CAA Football.
Enjoy the game Saturday.